Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining us today on Unleashed with Kimberly, a conversation for insight and intelligence. I'm your host, Kimberly Anderson. I'm an intuitive transformational coach and business creative. And happy Nonprofit November. Yes, this month we are talking with incredible people that have started or are holding up huge nonprofits that are helping so many people. And I am super excited today to talk to Randy Lung from Dive Guardians and Kimberly Boynton from Leave No Woman Behind. Thank you, both of you, so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to talk about this.
Well, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So, Randy, let's just start with you real fast. Tell us what it is that you actually just do.
Okay, yeah, so we're Dive Guardians, and we're a nonprofit. What we do is we bring awareness to the mental health issues and high rates of suicide among first responders. And we try to reduce those numbers through our program, which consists of biofeedback, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and scuba diving.
Wow, that's incredible. So what made you start this? Let's start there. How did you decide to come up with helping people in this way?
Well, I was working for several years using scuba diving to help veterans. So we were helping veterans with PTSD and loss of limbs and all sorts of stuff and using scuba diving to help them. There's been studies that have been done that show that scuba diving reduces the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, and it's also very good for physical injuries as well. So then I was doing that for a while. On October 3rd, 2016, I'm retired law enforcement. I was active duty law enforcement in October of 2016. A friend of mine named Rick Runstrom, San Bernardino County Deputy Sheriff, committed suicide. So needless to say, it upset me that he did that. I was upset that he committed suicide, but I was also upset because at the time I'm working with veterans, helping them with post-traumatic stress, and I didn't even notice my own friend going through anything. I was so focused on just veterans. I'm a veteran, I'm a Marine, so I get it. There are hundreds of organizations out there that help veterans, as there should be. But when I started doing some research about organizations helping first responders, there wasn't a lot out there. So I didn't want to see that ever happen again to anybody. Because when he committed suicide, he left behind not only his friends, but a wife, 3 kids, and a brand new grandchild. Wow. So I didn't want to see that happen again. So I decided to start Dive Guardians to help, primarily focused on first responders, because they go through the same kind of stuff. They develop the same post-traumatic stress as a military veteran, a military person does in combat or anything else. So that's where we came from, and that's how we started.
Wow, that's incredible. And what do you do for work? What is it that you do as a job?
Well, I'm retired. I retired from law enforcement in July of 2018.
Thank you for all that you do.
And then I started Dive Guardians in March of 2018. So I was already 50, so I said, okay, this is starting to take up a lot of my time. So I need to focus on it full time. And I wanted to begin training people as fast as I could. So this is my primary job now.
That's awesome. That's incredible. I love that you're able to devote your time to that. That's amazing. So Kimmy, and I love it, 2 Kimberlys today. My family calls me Kimmy, but you go by Kimmy everywhere. I love it. So differentiate from us. Share first what is it that you actually do for work, and then you can start talking about the nonprofit.
Okay. So I'm a multi-business owner. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I also own Serenity Wellness Center, and I own another nonprofit, Polaris Performing Arts Academy. So 2 different ends of the spectrum there, performing arts and therapy, but it kind of goes in the same, kind of thing. So that's what I do. And then my nonprofit is SWE, which stands for Sister Warriors of the Inland Empire. And what we are is we're domestic violence advocates. We're an extension of Leave No Women Behind, which is a nonprofit here in the Inland Empire, which was founded by Shay Van. And basically that started out as like a hiking group, for women to get together and just kind of hike, and, get to know each other, and basically a sisterhood of women to support each other. Last year, it kind of grew into division of different nonprofit organizations. So at the beginning of this year, I inherited the domestic violence organization. I do have some history with that. My mother ran the domestic violence organization for the Long Beach courthouse. And I've been involved with, just basically trying to help women get out of their situations with their accusers. So what we do is we do everything from helping them get away from their accusers, finding them someplace to go, whether they need clothing, food, shelter, helping them with their court papers. That's basically, what we're here to do, is support the victims and survivors of domestic violence relationships.
Wow. So yeah, it does kind of all go under an umbrella, right?
Yeah.
So what, you said your mom ran the one for the court. Is that kind of what exposed you to the great need for this domestic violence?
No, I think what it was, my mom's a family law attorney, so growing up with an attorney, I kind of hear like the things that were going on. Over the years, just different friends, myself included, have been, I've been exposed to it. Luckily for me, not anything extensive, to what I've seen in the past, but as a therapist, a lot of the females that I would get, and males too, because I can't say it's strictly just females, because believe it or not, there's a substantial amount of males too who are also victims of domestic violence. But I think it's just more focused on the women for whatever reason, but there is a substantial amount of men. So just over the years, whether it was clients, friends, family, I've just been exposed to it my whole life. So I think that in the past, over the years, a lot of it kind of got pushed under the rug. And as you've noticed in the media, and as we've gone on with the times, things are now starting to come to light from things that have happened way back, even years ago. And so I think it was just more people are starting to find their voice and coming out and, being able to say, hey, we need to stop this. And so that's where I've seen what I've seen in the past is people don't know where to go, or they don't know what to do. They know they need to get out of a situation, but they don't know how to do it, where to go. And then you have a lot of people who are afraid of, if I come forward, do I have to face my accuser in court? Do I have to do this? So it just brought up a lot of different scenarios that scared individuals into coming forward. So that's where we come in, where we can kind of help guide them. And then even on the therapy side of it, I can offer them, some kind of therapy to get through, the PTSD or, whatever it is, the issue that it's causing them. So yeah, it did kind of stem, to answer your question, from, over the years of my watching, what my mom's gone through with her cases and, her victims and stuff. And it just kind of made me want to get out there and help too.
Wow. You know what? I love having both of you on. You're both helping completely two different types of people that there's such a great need for. And all of us know somebody, if it hasn't been ourselves, that it has gone through domestic violence on some level. And we likely know a veteran or a first responder. So I love that you both are here today. This is really good. Randy, how do people, how do they get involved into that diving, to the Dive Guardians? What do they need to do to
it's pretty easy.
Do you certify them?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you certify them?
Yes, we're all instructors. I'm a PADI certified scuba instructor, Professional Association of Dive Instructors, and I'm also a NAUI certified instructor, National Association of Underwater Instructors. And we certify them. They go through our basic open water program, and when they complete the program, they're a certified basic open water diver. And we stress, in 2011, Johns Hopkins University did a study. They took 19 wheeled vets to the Cayman Islands to see the effects on scuba diving and paraplegia. And they did 9 dives over 4 days. 10 of the people were a control group. 9 of them did the program. 8 of them completed it. I don't know why the one didn't. So after they finished the dives, they discovered what they were looking for. Sensory touch sensation increased. All these different things increased. But the cool thing that they also discovered was an 80% in PTSD symptoms after scuba diving. So it comes down to oxygen and pressure. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy, they've been using that technique for years. They put you in a chamber and they bring you down under pressure. It's been used for wound healing and all because oxygen is healing. So the more oxygen you can get into your body, the faster you can heal. Well, you put yourself under pressure and now you're breathing in oxygen. You're breathing in more under pressure than you do at the surface. Promotes that healing even faster. So that's how the scuba diving aspect of what we do actually, the science behind it. And there's also the Zen portion of the floating and the bubbles. Not at first, because but after they become divers, they're all relaxed at that point, and then they're very comfortable. And they find us through our website. There's an application process. I'm the only one that gets the applications. They come to me. They're all password protected, so it's very secure and very private. I don't work directly with any organization, so anything that we talk about at Dive Guardians or it happens, it stays with us. It doesn't. I don't call their agencies and tell them that anybody's going through or anything. So, but that's the concept of how the diving portion works.
Wow, that's really awesome. So you're becoming a confidant as well, and it's a private conversation. That's really cool. So is it a program that you do? Is it like an 8-week program, or how does that work?
Well, it started off it just started off with scuba diving because that's what I was using before. But I discovered, as naturally you would probably guess, not everybody wants to scuba dive. So I was cutting out a large portion of people I can help. So I introduced what's called heart rate variability biofeedback into the program, where I hook you up to a machine and basically it's like a lie detector test. It's got a breathing thing and sensors, and I went through some training to learn how to use it. I'm still going through training, as a matter of fact, to perfect it. And it helps people get their breathing back because as post-traumatic stress symptoms come in, there's a disconnect between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. And sometimes the parasympathetic doesn't do its job and turn off the fight, flight, or freeze response from the sympathetic system. So, and it all comes down to breathing. So we sit them down, and if they don't want to scuba dive, or even if they do, I'll put them on the biofeedback, and I'll get their breathing nice in order, teach them how to deep breathe again, and how to get their heart rate and their breathing back in sync with each other and in coherence with each other. And then if they want to go diving, then we put them through the diving portion. We just started using a hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We actually have our own chamber now that we can put applicants through. If they don't necessarily want to scuba dive, but they want the benefits of the oxygen and pressure, we can put them in the chamber. And they can do 10, 20 sessions or whatever they need to do in the chamber, and we can help them that way.
Wow, that's really cool. And you two, if you guys come up with a question for each other too, jump right in.
Oh no, I already know I want to talk to her.
I have all these questions going in my mind too, and it's interesting because we use biofeedback, or I've done in the past, for anger management, because exactly what he was saying, it controls, especially like when somebody's getting angry, like when we have somebody that's in an anger management situation, it does help us to see, okay, what's the trigger points, because we get to monitor that. So it's interesting. I haven't heard biofeedback used in a while, so it's good to see that that you guys are using that for PTSD, because I definitely have done stuff and I felt that it helped, because as a teenager growing up with a lot of things that I had went through, I was on biofeedback, and that helped me with my anger, as a teenager, like, okay, to feel it. So that's good that they are still using that.
Yeah. And I'm not a clinical therapist or clinical psychologist. I'm just a guy. So I can't. I'm not certified to do all the EMDR and all these different techniques that are out there right now. What I like about biofeedback, because I'm not a therapist, it's non-invasive. So I don't sit here and ask you to tell me about your problems because I'm not a therapist. Some of it's none of my business, but I want to help you through it at the same time. So I make them, and EMDR could be a little bit invasive if they're not ready for it yet. Sometimes it doesn't work 100% right away. They have to, and I know somebody, I only know this from talking to people. I've never done it myself, but it's a great technique. It's just, I think biofeedback, if you start with that and you get them back to their breathing and you get them thinking about these traumatic events themselves and learning how to control it, when they move on to EMDR, it's that much more successful. It's a good starting point. And, you take that, veteran, I always use veterans for this, he's in Afghanistan or wherever, and he's in a caravan of Humvees, right? And he's the first Humvee. And they pass this red Toyota on the side of the road. And he passes it, no problem. And then the second Humvee passes it. Well, the Toyota blows up now and kills people in the second Humvee. Now you've got that driver of the first Humvee. He's out of the military. He's a veteran, and he's sitting at a red light near the Hot Springs Road in Winchester, next to a red Toyota. His heart starts pounding. His fight, flight, or freeze response starts kicking in. Well, we all move up this ladder of anxiety. As we start to have this anxiety attack coming in, there's going to be a point where it cuts over of no return. You're going to have a panic attack. Mm-hmm. What I like about biofeedback is I make them, before they start the program, I have them give me a list of 8 to 10 words that are trigger words to them, like baby or car or whatever. And that word reminds them of a traumatic event that they went through, but it's not and I make them think about it. I don't tell them to tell me about it. And I watch them get all out of whack. And then I count and we try to we go and follow this bouncing ball on the breathing. And I see how long it takes them to come back down. And we work on it and work on it. And I send them home with another device called an inner balance that does the same thing, but it's a take-home version of the big version. And I have them do it 2 times a day for 10 minutes. And every week they come see me. And before you know it, we start with the smaller traumatic events. And before you know it, they're not having such they're cutting it off before it reaches that point of no return where they're just having this panic attack and they just don't know how to deal with it. We teach them kind of how to breathe through it and kind of cut it off. So that's been successful so far, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with that. And that's why I love what Kimberly does down there. I mean, it's the same thing with domestic violence victims. I mean, my whole program can help all of them as well, even the dialing, because trauma is trauma.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many times domestic violence victims have that PTSD as well. It's so there's so many different avenues and resources that we can help each other out. And that's why I wanted to do this entire month of all these amazing nonprofits out there that are out there to help people. And then of course you guys always need donations too. So we'll talk about that as well. But, because you got to be able to run these programs to help people. And I love that you're talking about the breathing. There's so much power in breath. And it's an incredible tool that we do automatically anyway. And I love this. It's interesting to me as you were talking about that, Randy, what you're doing is you're giving them like an actual device to help them learn to, in a sense, meditate. Because that's what they're doing with that ball, to follow how to breathe, and that your breath can help you from going into that full-blown anxiety attack, especially if you're sitting at the street and you see the red Toyota. Amazing. I love that you're doing this work. And Kimberly, I agree. I mean, I'm also a part of, with Kimberly in the Leave No Women Behind Warrior Sisters for the domestic violence. I do a lot of work with the domestic violence sector, having gone through it myself. But Do you see how there's even this correlation between the two with both of your nonprofits, how we could work together in this?
Oh, absolutely. Randy's a therapist. He doesn't realize that.
Minus the degree.
with the breathing with the breathing techniques, I mean, you're absolutely right, because I do something similar as well too. I do what's called, for my patients who have anxiety or PTSD, I do what's called a 4x4 breathing technique with them, which is pretty similar to what Randy was talking about with the, with the biofeedback, and that helps too. But a lot of times you have to, it's all about the breathing. It's controlling that. Because you get this sudden burst of like energy that you don't know what to do with it. And by doing the 4x4, it slows the heart rate down and it makes you focus more on your breathing. So you're not focused so much on, what the trigger is. So it's very similar, to what you're doing as well, Randy. That's why I said you're a therapist. You just didn't know that yet.
Well, people,
welcome to my world.
When they start having, as they go through life and they experience trauma, and their body, your brain's amazing. In a way, it'll rewire itself, and it can be a negative thing, but it's amazing at the same time. I mean, so your sympathetic is your fight, flight, or freeze response. So, when something traumatic happens, your sympathetic kicks in and it tells you to do whatever it is you're going to do. Then your parasympathetic basically turns it off. And brings you back to normal. Well, take a first responder. There's a book out there called Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement, written by a doctor named Kevin Gilmartin. And in his book, he talks about hypervigilance. So law enforcement or first responders, the moment they go on duty and they start their shift, they put themselves in a hypervigilant state. They're more hyper aware. They're officer safety. They have to be aware of everything. Because every vehicle stop you're going to do, someone's going to try to kill you. Or every domestic violence call you go on, which is the most dangerous call cops go on, try to kill you. It doesn't always happen, but you put yourself in that state. Well, that's when you stop deep breathing and you're shallow breathing, like you just ran that shallow breathing, and that takes you out of that coherence. Your fight, flight, or freeze response is basically on for 10 hours a day. Well, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So in hypervigilance, you're hot, you're energetic, you're happy, you have all these great feelings. Well, at the end of the day, when you go home, what happens? You have to crash. You're isolated, detached, which also affects the family life when you go home. And Dr. Gilmartin states in his book that it takes 18 to 24 hours for us to get back into this normal range. Well, talk to any first responder and ask them how often they have 18 to 24 hours off between shifts.
Right.
So it's hypervigilant, isolated, detached. Hypervigilant, isolated. So after a while, your brain basically says, okay, this is how you are now. So you're going to be hypervigilant all the time, which if you look up symptoms of post-traumatic stress, hypervigilance is one of them. So you're basically turning yourself into a post-traumatic stress nightmare by just going to work every day. So we try to teach them to rewire their brain again to remember how to deep breathe and remember, it's a muscle. It's just like you go to the gym. If you haven't been to the gym a while and you lift for the first time, your muscles are all sore and you have to rework those muscles. Well, we teach their muscles to breathe properly again. So that's the concept of all that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you want to add something to that, Kimberly?
I know I agree with everything that Randy's saying as well. It is, even like you said, like even in a domestic violence situation, coming out of it, the women or the men, whoever the victim or survivor is at that point is just, in this big high. And then it also causes, on our end, it causes a lot of bipolar activity too, because they're coming out of this traumatic situation. And so they're very fragile, they're very vulnerable. And so they're willing to open up at that time to talk about it. But then at the quick second, they switch. And you see this other side where it's like, now all of a sudden you're the victim. We become the victim. Like, wait a minute, what did I do? I'm here to try and help you. So it creates a whole lot of different emotions. And like Randy said, I mean, just the brain itself, it's that switch, quick switch, and we've seen it all the time. And that's why even in my experience with working with the women that go in this, I already know, like from my standpoint, I mean, I've got experience with it. For the other ones, like that are in our group that are just now experiencing it and working with the victims, they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, this woman just flipped on me and now they're accusing me of this and that, and where I'm used to it. So it's very touchy-feely, the situation that we get put in. That's why I'm very cautious now with the group, because and we make sure we get everybody certified as well too, as you know, because there's certain things that will trigger a person. Certain words, like what Randy was saying, you have trigger words that trigger things that you could do, like fast movement, you know, just all types of different situations. And we don't know what those triggers are because each individual is different. So, you know, there's a lot.
There really is. And that key point of teaching how to breathe through it is, it's profound in your life for anybody. I teach a lot of it when I'm doing workshops and stuff. It's always back to that breath, right, and how it can help you. And, you know, it's funny, Randy, when you're talking about, you're doing this and I'm breathing with your hands as you're going up. And, you know, it's this automatic thing. Oh, inhale, exhale. So there's so many resources too on how to even just breathe. You know, you can, I think YouTube has probably a plethora of different meditations and different things. So even if you're not ready to go out and reach out to Randy or Kimberly for help, and you're not quite there yet, seek out that. YouTube has thousands and upon thousands of breathing methods just to have a starting point.
Yeah, we have an app that, well, it's a website actually that I give the students and I send them home with. And if you have like, I use it myself. And if you have like Apple CarPlay or something where you could play it, it's music and it goes. So what we have to do with biofeedback is we have to determine your breathing pattern. So I have to do some breathing tests with you to determine how many breaths a minute that you take that is the most beneficial for your body. Everybody's different. Like mine is 0.5. When I just had someone in here a couple weeks ago and theirs was 7 breaths a minute. So then we set this thing and you just take it in your car and while you're driving, it's only 10 minutes long worth of music. I put it on while I'm driving to the office and it plays a song, a music tone that goes higher when you're breathing in and lower when you're breathing out. And you just follow the music as you're driving and do your deep breathing. And you know, and then it just turns off when it's done. And if you do that to and from work, that's twice a day. That's all you really, 20 minutes a day is what they say is what you need to get your muscle memory back. It's really hard to sit for 20 minutes and breathe. I mean, I don't have that kind of patience. So splitting it up for 10 minutes a day seems to work. And but yeah, so there's lots of apps out there and I can share, I don't have it. I can pull it up and share it. People can bring it up and download it themselves. I mean, you're pretty safe in the 6.5, 7 range, even if you've never been through biofeedback, to use that range, and it will just help. It will help you regardless, whether you know your breathing pattern or not.
And it's because I have apps too that I use personally, and I use with my patients as well, for even at nighttime, going to sleep. And there's even a hypnotherapy, because I'm a hypnotherapist too. And so there's these hypnotherapy apps that I work with when you're going to bed at night, and it kind of walks you through. So it all starts with the breathing. And like Randy was saying, it has the music in the background, and then it just kind of walks you through. So it kind of puts you in that meditation state, and it's walking you through different things. I personally, I don't think I've ever made it through to the end of what the app does, because I'm asleep and I always try to fight it. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to skip, I'm going to listen to this and I'm going to do it. And then I wake up the next morning, I'm like, man, I didn't make it through. So clearly it works, but you know, but there are, you know, like Randy was saying, there's a lot of different apps out there, whether in the car, just for everything. It all comes down to breathing. Breathing is just one of the main sources to a lot of things, you know, outside, you know, PTSD. I mean, we use breathing when I'm teaching my vocal lessons. That's the first thing we do, is we go straight to breathing. and how to use the correct form of your diaphragm and how to use the correct breath control. So breathing is just one of those things, regardless what the situation is. It could just be like, even with diving, breathing's a big thing too, swimming, so it's not necessarily just for traumatic stuff, but breathing is like the core center of anything that you do in life.
Yeah. And it's, I always, anytime I wind up into a conversation that's so wrapped around breathing, I find it really interesting because we do it anyway. We do it naturally. We took our first breath when we were born, and we haven't stopped unless we're trying to hold it, to go underwater. So to know that we do this anyway, but there's really so much power within it, and to be able to help yourself. It calms your mind, it calms your body, it helps your blood pressure. It literally helps your body heal, as you were even talking about, Randy. To think about that, it's so powerful, and you do it anyway. I think there's a lot of power to it, because when people, it's not something that's outside of themselves that they can't do. You do it anyway.
Right.
Just learn how to do it to where it really helps and heals your body, your mind, your soul.
Yeah. Then you add in the scuba aspect of our program. So I do this first. So I teach them how to breathe. Well, the number one rule in scuba diving when you go through the program is you never hold your breath. You always breathe continuously. Holding your breath is dangerous.
Right.
So now you've got your breathing pattern. And after you do the program for a while, the breathing part, your brain automatically knows, like say you're 6.5 breaths a minute. At first, you don't know what 6.5 breaths in and out is. But after a while, you kind of get the hang of how long you got to breathe in and how long you got to breathe out. Now you take that breathing underwater with you. Now you're breathing through a regulator, deep in, deep out. As you're diving along, you're accomplishing two goals at one time. You're using oxygen and pressure for healing, but you're also using deep breathing because you're doing it underwater, and it actually conserves your air more instead of getting in that hypervigilant mode of breathing heavy when you're underwater, just nice and relaxed. So I use the biofeedback to help them with the scuba diving as well. So that's what another good thing about it.
That's awesome. I love it. And like Kimberly said, you are a therapist. You just
So yeah. Well, I practice what I preach.
You don't have to hear everybody else's problems. You get the good side of the therapy.
Yeah. I don't intervene too much.
Exactly. It's funny when you were talking about the scuba diving, I remember, because I like rivers. I love water. I'm not so fond of the beach. I have a fear of the beach. And it's just because I had traumatic stuff happen to me, growing up in the ocean. So when I went to St. Thomas for vacation one year, the first time I ever went snorkeling, and as you know, when you're swimming, it's all about holding your breath, underwater, how long you can make it. Where opposite, when you're snorkeling or diving, you're breathing. So for me, that was different. So when I first learned to snorkel, I was like, wait a minute, I'm breathing underwater. Like it was a completely different mindset, and it freaked me out a little bit because, like you said, I'm so used to holding my breath when I'm just normally swimming. So to have something, to be able to breathe underwater, the concept was completely different. And once I learned how to do it and I got it down, I was like, wow, this is actually cool. But it kind of relieved me from the fear and the stress of drowning, I guess, underwater too, because I was breathing, and I think my fear is being trapped underwater and not being able to breathe. When I got caught in a riptide or, something like that, that was my fear. But I had a calmness when I did the snorkeling because I was able to breathe. So that fear factor was gone for me. So it was that, so I kind of see like what you're talking about now. When you said that, it kind of triggered, oh my God, I remember that. So that for me was kind of cool, and it kind of was calming for me to know I can breathe underwater.
Well, I tell every student when they come through, I go, the hardest part of scuba diving is the first 5 seconds you put your face underwater.
Yeah.
Because, we were all breathing water at one point in our lives, right? But people that's the most apprehension people has, because as soon as you put a regulator and go underwater, your brain is like, this is not supposed to be happening. So the moment you take that first breath and you breathe out, it takes about 5 seconds, you're like, oh, hey, I could do this. Okay. And I tell you, that's the hardest part. The moment you get over, you're going to be fine. You have plenty of air. Don't worry about it. And I'm certainly not going to take you in an area where you'll be trapped, when you go scuba diving. We're all in the open ocean. You're just diving around, and it's very peaceful and very relaxing. We just went on a night dive
Wow.
2 nights ago in La Jolla. It's pitch black. You're underwater with your flashlight. It's very quiet and very peaceful.
I would imagine.
Whatsoever. Yeah.
Do you start people out, Randy, in the ocean to dive, or are you guys starting out in a pool?
No, it's a pool. So the program consists of several hours and 25 or so skills we all do in the pool. So it's 2 or 3 days in the pool before I'll even take them to the ocean. And we go over all the skills, and we make them very comfortable. And if I don't think they're ready, we'll do another pool day if we have to. I have a pool that's donated to the youth, to us, the Drop Zone Water Park in Paris. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a great water park, but they donate their pool to us, and they let us use it whenever we want. So, and it's 14 feet deep, so I could take them down there. So then we do the pool, and then we go to the ocean. And you have to do 4 ocean dives. So we do 2 one day, and we do 2 in La Jolla, and then I finish off at Catalina Island with them.
Very cool. That's very cool. Wow. So I like what you said there, though. If you don't think they're ready, or if they feel that they need an extra day, you get to stay in the pool 1 more day, whatever. So there's no pressure. And that's one of the things that we do when we're helping people, is we're trying to take that pressure that you have to do this off of them. And I think there's so much pressure anyway with all the traumas that we've gone through. So to know that you're taking that off, and hey, it's real fluid in how you're teaching them and getting them prepped for that, and then all the healing that goes along with it. That's awesome.
I mean, and it could be so for domestic violence victim. I mean, when I started this, my primary focus was first responders. But in the back of my mind, there was a part of me that wanted to help victims of rape, women who are victims of rape, because that's traumatic, and I wanted to help them. It's difficult because my staff consists of men, so I need more females in my program to come through so I could make them instructors. So, but domestic violence is a huge one that you take a person, especially someone. I'm not specifically talking about that male or female that was physically abused. I'm talking about the emotional abuse that some people go through. That's domestic violence. Years and years of emotional abuse. It takes a person's self-esteem and turns it sometimes into nothing.
Yeah.
You have to spend, I'm sure you spend hours and hours with people that are victims of emotional domestic violence and trying to build their self-esteem back up. Well, they come through us, and I teach them to dive, and then we get them involved with helping teach others to dive and show them that they're important and that they have self-worth, and it helps build their self-esteem back up. I think that would be awesome, because there's definitely not enough. Domestic violence is a big thing, and it's so awesome to see when there's an organization that helps that.
And see, on this side too, exactly what you said, Randy. It's the emotional part of it. The physical part of it, obviously, that's a big thing too. But the physical part, usually, if it's not something serious, heals. But the emotional scarring is what lasts. So a lot of people that I work with have told me I can get past the physical aspect of what happened to me. It's the emotional part that they can't, get past. And so that is a big thing. And it is harder to deal emotionally with people than it is to physically get them better. The emotional state is what takes a lot longer, because you could get them to a certain point and one little trigger happens and they're right back to where they started again. And I've seen that so many times. So for me, it's emotional for me too, because I'm on this journey with them. And when I see them make this progress, I'm like, oh my God, great. And it's, I'm so proud of them and everything else. And then just one thing, and all of a sudden they're right back to where they were before, and I'm starting all over again. So that's emotional for me too, because I'm like, oh, we just got there and now here we are again, so it's a process, and it's a emotional process, but it is definitely more emotional than it is physical for a lot of the victims.
And it's the same for first responders. So, of course, you get a cop that gets in a shooting. That's a traumatic event. Okay, but there are protocols in place within the departments that bring you through the process, and you talk to a counselor, and there's a process. Not saying it's the best process, but there is a process. The people that don't often get noticed are those cops that never get in a shooting, but they go through their career and they see domestic violence call after domestic violence call, a baby who just drowned in a swimming pool, a fatality crash, that they have to respond to, traumatic event after traumatic event, and it cumulatively builds up. At the end of the day, it's the same post-traumatic stress, but there's no protocols in place for that.
Right.
It's usually unnoticed until that cop goes out and gets a DUI because they're self-medicating now, or has a domestic violence incident themselves, or heaven forbid, builds up to the point where you pull what Rick did and commit suicide. I look at emotions, and I teach this in my class, that you got to look at your emotions like a balloon. So every time you experience something traumatic, it's a little bit of air in that balloon. If you don't do something to let some of that air out, eventually that balloon's going to pop. And when that balloon pops, that's the day you get a DUI, or the day you lose your temper and do something domestic violence related, or heaven forbid, commit suicide, or something to that event. So you have to find ways to let the air out of that balloon, healthy ways. Whether it's seeing a counselor, family counselor, because family counseling and law enforcement, first responders, I say law enforcement a lot, but I mean for all first responders, it's huge, because there's often a disconnect between the first responder and their significant other, or the first responder and their children, because they have to go through the hypervigilant process. And sometimes when you get home from work, you don't have time to play with the kids right away. You need that 15, 20 minutes to decompress. If you don't have some people have long drives, but if you don't, you just need it. And that's when family counseling comes in, bring that family back together again. So.
Yeah. It's that long-term, that emotional stuff that happens. And like you're saying, it's with the first responders, it's not often even recognized or noticed until that balloon's about to pop. And I love that analogy, by the way. I'm going to start using that. That's really good analogy. But for domestic violence victims, it took us a long time to say, hey, this is emotional abuse, and it's abuse. Just because he's not punching me in the face doesn't mean he's not abusing me. And it took a long time for us to finally get that to even be acknowledged. And the long-term effects for any of that emotional stuff, I mean, it's lifetime. I still find myself going, wait a minute, it's okay. But what's happening is we're teaching people and giving them resources that they could use themselves to pull themselves out of it when those emotional moments happen for them. And again, going back to the breathing or the mindset, affirmations, whatever it is, start doing jumping jacks. Just get your mind out of what's going on, because your mind is your best friend. It's your worst enemy. So being able to understand that, and that you actually have the power, and that's what so many of these amazing, both of these, well, and I guess, Kimberly, you have a couple different nonprofits, but both of the nonprofits that you're talking about today really do help and provide resources for on many, many levels. And actually, I did see that, I'm going to put this right up here. Randy, you put this out there. This is the paced breathing meditation that you were talking about earlier. So if anybody wants that, but also all of the links that we're going to be popping up here, you guys can put down in the comments throughout the Facebook. We have a couple of different Facebook pages that we air on, and you guys can put all your links inside of that as well, so people can just click as they go, so they don't have to wait for me to do it at the end if they're watching, or I guess they can fast forward at that point if they're rewatching the show. But yeah, that emotional baggage, if you want to call it baggage, it really takes a toll on people throughout any community and throughout any job, really. But especially domestic violence and the.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look at another passion of mine is bullied kids. I mean, look at kids, and you know, I can get into a whole big soapbox about my opinion about active shooters and why there's so many of them. But one of the theories I have is the balloon theory. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was a kid, I mean, people got picked on just like they do now. There wasn't social media, obviously, back then, but we didn't have active shooters like you have right now. You know, my father, inadvertently, he did it on purpose maybe, but he taught me resilience. He taught me to stand up for myself. He taught me to be resilient in life. And I've noticed as times are changing that kids are being taught that less and less, and they're being taught to walk away, walk away, walk away. Well, they keep locking it up back there, and they don't let air out of that balloon. It pops. And that's when they go grab a gun and they do something stupid. I mean, we need to give these kids a way to in a healthy manner, let the air out of their balloon, whether it's mountain biking or running or scuba diving or, going to talk to a counselor or different things. But they're another big area that I have passion to help is bullied kids. I was a bullied kid, so I can relate.
See, that's my passion as well, too. You hit the nail right on the head when you said that, because I love working with the kids that I have with this. And same thing, I was a bully kid, and I was the opposite. So I was the one that was taught walk away. Well, walking away didn't work well for me because exactly what Randy said, it just progressed every year. And it was the same group of kids every year that I was bullied by. And it wasn't until I got in my 7th grade year, the same group of kids, because I thought, okay, now I'm at a different school. Even though those kids were there, I figured there was more kids there, so that attention wouldn't be on me. Well, that didn't happen. So my 7th grade year, the same group of kids came at me, and I was a very passive kid. I've always been like that, and I was taught to be like that until now as an adult. But when that 7th grade year hit and these same group of kids came, I lost it one day. I followed that group of kids home, and they all lived in the same little community at the time. I followed them home, and they turned around and saw me. They said, "Oh, what are you doing? You're following us?" And I just remember I lost it and just beat the crap out of the one girl. And everybody was like, "Oh my God," because they were shocked that I fought back for the first time. Her and I became best friends after that, which is funny, but it just took that one time for me to stand up to myself, and then we all became really good friends, for the rest of the time. But exactly what he said, like I said, I was that opposite one, and I was very quiet, very reserved, and I kept taking, and I was that balloon that just kept going until I exploded. And then, that kind of didn't go the right way, later on so much because I kept doing that. So now I am working with, the students the patients that I have that are kids that are being bullied, to find a release, because we don't want them obviously striking back. That's not the answer, but yes, stand up for yourself, as far as like whether it's your words or, doing something else constructively. Because I do get worried about it. And I've seen a lot, especially now with COVID here, I have gotten so many more kids because they have no outlet. There's no sports. There was no, now things are starting to open up a little bit more, but just within the last 4 or 5 months, I was getting a lot more kids than I was adults because they don't have the outlet. They don't have school they can physically go to anymore. They don't have friends they can physically, go out at recess and play with and do whatever, especially the littler ones. Even here with my grandkids, I'm noticing that. And that for me right now is the biggest issue, is working with the kids, because they don't have an outlet right now. We're adults, we can still go out, we can go to the store, we can do stuff, but the kids who have, no control of what they can and can't do, that's where their balloon is starting to do this. And when it pops, it's a disaster for the parents, because they don't know. Now they're like, oh my God, what do I do? So COVID has really played a huge part in with the kids, and even with the domestic violence, because more couples are being stuck together at home and not being able to go to work like they used to. So I've seen a lot of that now lately too, that we're dealing with.
Yeah, the domestic violence has really escalated, especially in the situations that were already bad. Now they're worse.
Oh yeah.
So I want to make sure I get all of your guys' information out. You both are an incredible wealth of information. You have lots and lots of resources to share. I want to first put back up this link for the breathing that Randy put up there. To find out more about Dive Guardians, this is your website, diveguardians.org, and people can find out, what can they find out about?
Well, you can go to our website, and we have a new one that's being built right now, but the old one's still up. The new one's being built in the background. You can't see it, but you can go and read our story. You read the story of Rick and how I started this thing, and you can sign up for our program. Most importantly, you can donate. We are a 501c3. I always put it out there. I tell everybody, I'm retired. I don't make any money. I don't take a salary or anything from Dive Guardians. Every penny that comes in, I just use it to train people in scuba diving. It costs, about $500 to train one person in scuba diving. Then you add in the biofeedback, and the chambers are expensive to use. So it costs a bit of money. So you can donate to us. I always ask people to donate $10 a month, and you can go right on our website, click on the shield that's on there, and do a recurring monthly donation, or you can do a one-time donation. That keeps us keeping our program free, because our program's free to the first responders. They don't pay anything. So I provide it free to them. So and that's the biggest thing they'll see, and the biggest thing that can help us continue to keep our program going and growing our program. I want to keep adding tools to it. I mean, every time I talk to somebody like Kimberly, that's a tool that I can add as well to my program. I have someone that can need some family counseling. Okay, I know who to call, and then Dive Guardians pays for them to go through that. So, you can't build a house with just a hammer. You need more tools. So every tool that you can put in your tool belt, the bigger our program grows and grows and grows. A wellness center, that's my dream, is to have a big center where they can do all what they need to do.
That's awesome. And then here's your personal, your email and your phone number if anybody wants to reach out to you and call you directly. Kimberly, the Sister Warriors of Inland Empire 2020.org, share what they can find on there.
So I just thinking like what Randy was constantly building to on the background as well. I just added the emergency button on there. So if there is a victim that's on there and they're trying to get resources, and say their perpetrator walks in or their accuser walks in, they can hit that emergency button and it takes them out of the screen completely. So it just goes to like Google or, something else. So that was a big thing too, because a lot of times they don't want their accuser to know, that they're actually looking for some kind of help. But if you go on there, same thing. It just kind of tells you a little bit about us, what we do as a domestic violence advocate. We have a donation button on there as well. We do participate with other nonprofit organizations. We too are 501c3, so we partner with different nonprofit organizations. Like we just did one to help the homeless with the pillows, passing the pillows out. We hit our target for the transitional home that's coming out here in Lake Elsinore, so we can do all their pillows. The pillowcases have positive affirmations on it. so that it lets that when they go to sleep at night, they're going to sleep with the positive affirmation. That's the last thing that they see before they go to sleep. There's a lot of different things on there that we're constantly adding to it as well. And when I hear things too, it's exactly like what Randy said, is like you're constantly adding tools to, when you hear something or see something new, it's like, oh, let's add that. We added our partners on there because we want to support each other, in the community as well too. So, and our contact information is on there as well.
Perfect. I love it. And you guys will put the links down in the comments on the Facebook pages so people can just click real quick. And I just want to thank you both so much for being on the show today. You both are a wealth of information. I love what you're doing in the world. Thank you for your service, all that you've done. If anybody's interested in what I've got going on, KimberlyACoaching.com, my events and everything else that's coming up. And thank you so much, you guys, for coming on here and sharing this time with me. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.